is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
Good morning. The time right now is 4:27 here on your Wednesday. I want to thank you for starting your day with us here on Good Morning Indiana and RTV6. I'm Lauren Casey.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. We start off our Wednesday morning with some good news. Many businesses and storefronts in downtown Indianapolis reopening after many of their windows were broken. Some of them had items stolen from them. As you can see, they were boarded up, but thankfully now they are opening up back in business.
Yeah, it was kind of a 1-2 punch, although they had to be closed for the coronavirus pandemic, and then the weekend leading into the day they were allowed to reopen from the city. Then this is when we had all those riots. So we are following their efforts to reopen and rebound from this pandemic, and we'll break down some of those local businesses that are back open here in the Circle City. Another story we are following for you today is the latest with the coronavirus cases in Indiana. We know the number of deaths and the number of positive cases increased a decent amount yesterday. The latest numbers from the state health department. Again, we'll get an update on those latest numbers at noon today.
We do want to bring in meteorologist Todd Clausen here. Todd, we saw some heavy rainfall and some high winds yesterday afternoon. What can we expect as we head into our Wednesday?
You know, more of the same. In fact, we're going to carry over the alert day into today because there will be the potential for severe storms once again this afternoon. The severe aspect of the storms did not materialize yesterday, which is always a good thing, but the potential was there. And as you mentioned, Meredith, some very heavy rainfall and some lightning with those tropical downpours that went through, part of the remnants of Cristobal. Today, it's pretty quiet this morning. We'll have temperatures as you walk out the door really, really warm. In fact, we're at 80 degrees in Muncie, 81 in Bloomington, and temperatures won't really go up a whole lot here throughout the day today, only at about 84 degrees, but watch for storms to blossom very quickly here this afternoon. It's, as far as a time window, it's a pretty small window for the potential of severe weather this afternoon, but when the storms get going, all forms of severe weather will once again be on the table. We'll talk more about the storm threat in just a little bit.
All right, Todd, thank you so much. Another story we have for you, it's part of our Rebound Indiana series. Not only are we monitoring how businesses and individuals are looking past this pandemic, but churches, they were hit hard because they weren't allowed to have parishioners in-house for several weeks, some of them months. So as many of them are reopening their doors now to people in person, we're looking at how many of them received loans from the Paycheck Protection Program to help their employees, how small churches were impacted, and what that means if they do accept federal dollars, if they have any sort of connection or requirements by the federal government. So Kara Kenny is breaking down this pretty complicated issue for us and taking a look at some examples around central Indiana. We'll have more on this story, plus news, weather, and traffic right here on Good Morning Indiana.
This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
Are coming down and doors are starting to reopen after vandalism and looting left many downtown businesses in shambles. Now at 4:30, how those shop owners are rebounding and preparing to welcome customers.
Plus, Senate Republicans are responding to calls for police reform. Working for you this morning, we're taking a look at their plan and how it differs from one unveiled by Democrats.
And saying goodbye to a community leader. Details on funeral and visitation arrangements for Chris Beatty. It's 4:30 here on your Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Meredith Barrick.
And I'm Lauren Casey. Todd Clausen is standing by from home this morning. Todd, what can we expect as we head into our midweek forecast?
You know, it's pretty quiet here this morning, just like yesterday. There's not going to be a lot that happens here this morning, so you'll get the opportunity to get out and about. But once we get to the afternoon hours, that's when we're going to bring in, unfortunately, the potential once again for some strong to severe storms. Storm Team 6 radar is pretty quiet. Yesterday we had the storms and the heavy rainfall, but we avoided the severe threat. But if you looked at those clouds yesterday, they were streaming through central Indiana really, really fast. Well, the clouds that are around this morning will break apart into some sunshine, and that's going to help to fuel some storms to get going here later on today. You notice there's a big spin out there, which is an area of low pressure near Kansas City. All that's going to work its way through the area during the day today. So watch for some storms to develop throughout the afternoon hours. They should be pretty isolated in nature, but they also could be pretty intense, especially on the eastern side of the state, and that's where the Storm Prediction Center has parts of the area under the enhanced risk of severe severe weather. We'll talk more about the storm threat today, and then a great stretch of weather that returns to central Indiana for tomorrow, coming up in Maine weather in just a few minutes.
All right, Todd, thank you so much. As you said, the weather is quiet for your morning commute. Here's a look north of the downtown area. This is on the northwest side, I-65, a view from the pedestrian overpass north of 30th Street. Traffic here very quiet at this early hour. No delays northbound or southbound. Right now, no crashes to report around the metro area, so that is good news. After more than a week of peaceful protests, boards blocking windows and doors are starting to come down here in downtown Indianapolis.
Some businesses are back open, like the commissary, barber, and barista. The shop's door was kicked in and some equipment was stolen after protests turned destructive the last weekend of May. But some places are still trying to bounce back, like Michael's Soul Kitchen, which is still working with insurance to make repairs.
When it first happened, the shop was there. We were a black-owned business. We have been helping during this whole COVID-19. We have been doing all kinds of stuff. So when it happened, it was like, wow.
We were protesting ourselves, so we were a part of it. When it's peaceful, it's great. You know, it sucks the door got kicked in, but when it comes to human lives, a door is nothing.
Many people and groups have stepped up to help businesses impacted by the unrest. Volunteers with City Life help Michael's clean up the restaurant's damage.
And Mass Ave Merchants Association is hosting a cleanup weekend. The event will be Friday, June 19th and Saturday, June 20th from 9 a.m. to noon. Volunteers will be working on weeding and pruning, cleaning the curb line of debris and picking up trash, and also mulching the landscape beds. You're asked to bring your own gloves, a roll of sturdy trash bags, and your favorite weeding tools. Games, prizes, and refreshments will be provided. You can find more information on the IndyChannel.com.
Tensions remain high across much of the U.S. since George Floyd was killed 2 weeks ago in police custody. Since then, there have been demonstrations across the country calling for change in policing. Now, Senate Republicans are unveiling their version of a police reform bill. John Lawrence has the details.
We don't want no more police.
After 2 weeks of widespread protests, Republican senators are preparing a proposal for police reform.
What we've been talking about here in the Senate Republican Conference is what we think is the appropriate response to the events of the last few weeks.
Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina unveiled a draft of the proposal, which includes greater accountability for no-knock warrants and uses of force.
What do we want? Justice! We want now!
The Scott plan release coinciding with George Floyd's funeral in Houston.
It is very unfortunate that his death was the catalyst for talks that needed to happen a very long time ago.
Since Floyd's killing while in custody of Minneapolis police, some protesters are calling for police departments to be defunded and dissolved, with their funding redistributed to community programs. And while there is general agreement that action is needed, some say a dismantling of law enforcement groups could be dangerous, especially with domestic disturbances.
You think that you're going to send somebody there without the required equipment to protect themselves and the innocent person that they're responding to help? That's folly.
Senator Scott is part of the 5-person task force that will work on turning the draft into legislation. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Congressional Democrats unveiled their own proposal to combat police brutality a few days ago. One of the changes they're calling for is a ban on chokeholds.
New this morning, funeral and visitation arrangements have been announced for Chris Beatty. He was the 38-year-old who was shot and killed 2 weeks ago during the weekend violence here downtown. A homegoing celebration for the former IU and Cathedral football player will be held this Friday at the Pavilion at Pan Am. Services will be from noon to 6 p.m. They are open to the public. A private funeral for the family will be held on Saturday. In lieu of flowers, the family requests donations be made to the Chris Beatty Memorial Fund. That fund will provide scholarships for incoming students at Indiana University and Cathedral High School in Chris's memory. Police are still looking for possible suspects in his case.
The man accused of killing Fisher's Police Canine Harley has been sentenced. 19-year-old Richard Garrett pleaded guilty to battery against a public safety official, criminal recklessness, and other charges. The November 2019 incident began when Garrett did not pull over during a traffic stop and then led police on a chase. It ended with Garrett shooting and killing Harley. Garrett is looking at even more serious charges in Marion County, where he faces 2 counts of murder and several other crimes. The Hamilton and Marion County cases are not related.
Now to the latest on COVID-19, the pandemic here in the state of Indiana. State health leaders are reporting an increase in both the number of new COVID deaths and new cases. The Indiana State Department of Health reporting 23 new deaths from the coronavirus. Since the pandemic began, 2,158 Hoosiers have died from this virus. The Department of Health also confirms 430 new COVID-19 cases. So far, 38,033 people in Indiana have been diagnosed with the coronavirus. The state says more than 315,000 people have been tested for COVID-19. 12.1% of those tests have come back positive. We expect an update from the state around noon today.
And there's new information. And there is new information this morning on the effectiveness of stay-at-home orders across the country. Researchers say those efforts likely prevented 60 million additional cases of the coronavirus. The study measured the effect of shutdown policies in 6 countries. It included data on daily infection rates, changes in coronavirus case definitions, and timing of large-scale shutdown policies. Another study examined COVID-19 deaths across 11 countries in Europe. That one estimates lockdown orders and school closures may have prevented more than 3 million deaths through early May.
Having the O blood type may protect you from getting COVID-19. That's what early research is showing from 23andMe. The genetic testing company with around 10 million customers was able to get more than 750,000 to participate. The 23andMe study falls in line with those coming out of Italy and Spain, along with China. But before you give consent for 23andMe to use your genetic information, you should consider the pros and cons.
There are privacy concerns when you give up your genetic material to a company and what they're going to do with it. So I would definitely read it very carefully, the whole study consent form, before you agree to it.
If you want to read them, the studies on this new discovery of the possible blood type protection against COVID-19 are linked in this story. It's posted on our website, theindychannel.com. It's also on all of our social media pages.
A popular summer spot is set to open on Monday. Initially, Greenwood's Freedom Springs Aquatic Center will be only open to season pass holders. That policy will be in place through July 4th. Day passes will be accepted after that. Everyone will be screened before entering the center, and social distancing will be enforced with floor markings in place.
Chicago just recorded its deadliest day in nearly 6 decades. Straight ahead, what city officials say is behind the uptick in violence after years of improvement.
And President Trump facing criticism this morning for a tweet attacking a 75-year-old protester. Why some are now calling for the president to be banned from Twitter. Todd.
And as we go throughout the course of the day, once again, storms are in the forecast, and some of these storms could be strong to severe. We have an area of low pressure that is out to our west, and along that area of low pressure, a cold front. All this has to come through. We'll time out the storms and let you know what the greatest threat going forward in this forecast will be coming up when Good Morning Indiana continues right here on RTV6.
Airing Hoosiers only on RTV6.
Chicago recently marked a grim new milestone, 18 homicides in a single day. The violence happening as protests over George Floyd's death spurred rioting and looting in the Windy City. Over Memorial Day weekend, Chicago police responded to at least 73 incidents in which 92 people were shot, including 27 who were killed. Victims range in age from 15 to 36. Activists blame the increasing violence on systemic problems that have plagued minority communities for decades, like joblessness, food insecurity, and a lack of housing. They say those issues were heightened by the COVID-19 outbreak.
At 4:43, President Trump is facing criticism this morning after tweeting a conspiracy theory about this encounter between police and a 75-year-old protester with Buffalo police. Martin Gugino left the hospital Tuesday after 5 days after he was shoved to the ground. In a tweet, the president said Gugino, quote, could be an Antifa provocator and was pushed away after appearing to scan police communications in order to black out equipment. He went on to say Gugino, quote, fell harder than he was pushed. Could it be a setup? In response, several people called for Twitter to ban the president, but the company, which has censored previous tweets by Trump, said this tweet did not violate its rules.
Machines down, long lines, scorching and stormy weather. It's just just a few of the frustrations Georgia voters faced at the primary polls Tuesday. The state now launching an investigation into what went wrong. Scores of new state-ordered voting machines were reported to be missing or malfunctioning. The system was put in place after widespread claims of voter suppression during the state's 2018 governor's election. Officials say predominantly black areas experienced some of the worst problems. Georgia's Secretary of State blamed local officials.
It's just totally disorganized mess. They had 3 additional months to get ready for this. They've had those machines for 6 months now in their storage warehouses. They could have gone out and trained their employees, trained their precinct workers. And what did they do? They squandered that time.
Some voters also complained of not getting absentee ballots in time. Those complaints will be part of the investigations as well. Several counties did extend voting hours due to the issues.
Some U.S. military bases could see a name change soon. U.S. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy and Secretary of Defense Mark Esper are set to be holding bipartisan conversations about renaming nearly a dozen major bases and installations that are named after Confederate military commanders. That means Army installations including Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Fort Hood in Texas, and Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia could all be renamed. But in a statement released Monday, the Army said that, quote, each Army installation is named for a soldier who holds a significant place in our military history, end quote. The statement went on to say that the names represent individuals, not ideologies.
A historic vote on Capitol Hill Tuesday. The Senate confirmed General Charles Q. Brown Jr. will be Chief of Staff of the Air Force. He is the first African-American to serve in the position. General Brown was sworn in with a 98-0 vote. Days before his confirmation, General Brown released a video titled "What I'm Thinking About." In it, he talked about his experience as a black man in the military and the pressure and racism he has faced. He said his nomination provides hope, but also comes with a heavy burden.
I can't fix centuries of racism in our country, nor can I fix decades of discrimination that may have impacted members of our Air Force. I'm thinking about how I can make improvements personally, professionally, and institutionally so that all airmen, both today and tomorrow, appreciate the value of diversity and can serve in an environment where they can reach their full potential.
General Brown also said while he doesn't have all the answers, he hopes to have the wisdom and knowledge to lead during difficult times like these and help make the Air Force better and more inclusive. 4:46 on your Wednesday morning. It is a Storm Team 6 alert day, Todd.
Yeah, no storms in the forecast once again, Meredith. It's almost kind of a repeat performance from yesterday. Yesterday, we didn't get into the severe aspects of the storms, which is always good news. I like when there's severe storms in the forecast and then they don't materialize. But today, there's probably a little better chance that they'll be able to go severe, and that's due to a little more in the way of instability that'll be around, especially if we get into some sunshine, which I am expecting this morning. It's a little cloudy right now, but the clouds should thin out. It's very windy again today, even outside the thunderstorms, with gusts up to about 40 miles per hour and the threat of severe weather, including tornadoes. That will be once we get into the afternoon hours. It's a pretty quick window, though, and it's the good news. It's not going to be a severe weather event that's going to be prolonged throughout the evening hours. Here are your wind gusts throughout the day. You notice they calm down a little bit here this morning, and then they'll kind of ramp back up as the cold front starts to make its way through the area, and that's when we could get those 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts this afternoon. The clouds thinning out across the area. It is really, really warm this morning. Temperature is sitting still at 78 degrees in Indianapolis. And you see the setup here for the potential of severe weather. Here is the cold front that is off to our west with the area of low pressure spinning away near Kansas City. This is all going to make its way through the area, and it's the cold front that is going to act as the trigger mechanism to get the storms going, and then it's the area of low pressure that's going to provide some rotation to maybe get a few isolated tornadoes going across parts of the area. From Peru to Muncie, over to Richmond, into Winchester, Marion, Hartford City, you're under the enhanced risk of severe weather. That's that brownish color. It's a slight risk in Indianapolis. And then once you get into extreme northeast Indiana, up towards Angola, that's where the moderate risk is out. And the reason why the risks are higher to the east is as these storms get going, that's where the front will be during the peak heating of the day. So wind's the main issue. Can't rule out the chance of an isolated tornado. Flooding, not a concern, though. These storms, as you'll see here on TrueCast, move through very, very quickly. Could there be a stray shower this morning? Absolutely, but nothing severe here this morning. So that's your better opportunity probably to get out and about for a run or a walk through the neighborhood. But you do see just these isolated storms that are going to try to get going throughout the course of the afternoon hours, anytime after noon. And then here's the line that's going to develop on the far eastern side of the state where that enhanced risk is out as we get closer to the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. Once that goes through, there could be a lingering shower into the evening hours closer to sunset, but the severe threat will be over at that point. So definitely good day to have that Storm Shield app downloaded on your phone, especially if you're going to be out and about. It will alert you to any warnings that do get issued. Temperatures again in the 70s and 80s here this morning. Our temperatures won't go up a whole lot here throughout the day today. We'll get up to about 83 to 84 degrees for your high temperature this afternoon. But once this front does go through this evening, it sets us up for an absolutely beautiful stretch of weather starting Thursday, taking us all the way into the middle of next week with lots of sunshine, low humidity, and temperatures that'll be more comfortable. Lauren.
All right, Todd, thank you. Let's take a look right now at traffic as you're heading out on the roads. This is I-65, a view from the pedestrian overpass right now around the metro area, not monitoring any crashes or delays. Great news if you're heading out early on this Wednesday morning.
Oprah is taking on the discussion about race. Her own network is airing a 2-night special called OWN Spotlight. Where do we go from here? The TV mogul will talk with a variety of African-American leaders, activists, and artists about systemic racism and current issues Black Americans face. Among those expected to speak are former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Part 1 aired Tuesday. Part 2 airs tonight beginning at 9.
Twitter and Square getting a new holiday. CEO Jack Dorsey announced that it's going to be adding Juneteenth as an official company holiday. June 10th is short for June 19th. The day commemorates the freeing of the slaves in Texas in 1865. Dorsey says the holiday will mark, quote, a day of celebration, education, and connection. The CEO has been active in addressing national issues. In April, he announced that he was transferring $1 billion of his Square equity to a limited liability company that will provide relief for victims of the coronavirus and then shift to girls' health and education issues.
The real U.S. Space Force may lose its trademark rights to a fake one. Netflix reportedly beat the military to the punch in securing the trademark for the name Space Force. The streaming service is currently airing a comedy series of the same name starring Steve Carell. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the show has trademark rights in several countries. Meanwhile, the Air Force has a pending application for registration.
A group of teens in Nashville is making the most of their quarantine. Coming up, the positive spin they're putting on the negative end to their school year.
And at 5, a violent start to this week in Indianapolis. Working for you, we're taking a look at what's behind the spike in violence in our city and what's being done to address it. It's 4:52. We'll be right back. How do teenagers who are told to isolate themselves stay connected? Some lockdown Nashville teens wrote and produced Quarantined, a virtual musical. It's told through FaceTime, Zoom, text messages, and TikTok. The show is entirely produced from the cast's respective homes. It tackles everything from canceled graduations to proms and other high school events. The digital performance will also include a behind-the-scenes peek with the cast and creators. The virtual curtain goes up this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It can be watched at thetheaterbug.org. Teenagers are so creative.
I know, I was going to say,
so many
staying busy
apps and things to use now to make things like that. Wow,
yeah,
pretty
that's
incredible.
A really good idea.
All right, Todd, how's our forecast looking for today?
You know, today is probably not the best day. It's definitely a day you have to stay weather aware. It's warm with the threat of severe weather developing later on this afternoon. It's windy outside of any storms as well. But once we get beyond today, it's a beautiful stretch of weather. So if you could maybe hold off on those outdoor plans till tomorrow and beyond, it may be advisable. Not everybody's going to see the storms, but if you do see the storms, there will again be the potential this afternoon of an isolated tornado, and damaging wind will be the main threat. But look at that stretch of weather temperature-wise. By the weekend, mid-70s with sunshine and low temperatures. They'll be a lot more comfortable as well. The time now, it's 4:57. You're watching Good Morning Indiana right here on RTV6. Stay with us. We're back in just a few minutes.